Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the weakness you've been blaming on age is not a verdict. It's a signal that your body is still listening, still adapting, still waiting for the right conversation with movement. After 60, strength does not disappear because the body suddenly forgets how to build muscle. It fades because the biological dialogue between effort and adaptation has grown quieter. The remarkable truth is that this dialogue can be amplified again. Muscle tissue remains metabolically alive, sensitive to stimulus, and deeply responsive to intelligent resistance. When we load a muscle, even gently, we awaken cellular machinery that has been dormant, not broken. Protein synthesis pathways reactivate, neural recruitment sharpens, and circulation improves in a cascade that feels almost like memory returning to the body. What we interpret as decline is often a mismatch between what the body expects and what we give it. Strength training after 60 is not about fighting age. It is about working with how the body is designed to adapt. Muscles don't weaken simply because time passes. They shrink when they are no longer challenged. When you apply even modest resistance, the brain and muscles restart a conversation that signals this tissue is still needed. The body responds by preserving strength, improving coordination, and rebuilding capacity. Muscle activity also affects the entire system. Active muscle helps regulate energy use, circulation, and inflammation, creating a more supportive internal environment. What feels like renewed vitality is often the result of cells functioning more efficiently and tissues receiving better oxygen and nutrients. There is also a neurological layer. Slow, deliberate movement sharpens the body's awareness in space, improving balance and restoring confidence in motion. Many fears around falling come not from incapability, but from dulled sensory feedback, something training can reawaken. Just as important is psychological adaptation. Each successful effort teaches the brain that movement is safe. Protective hesitation decreases, confidence grows, and the mind and body begin working together again to maintain strength. Muscle tissue after 60 is often misunderstood as fragile or permanently declining, yet biologically it remains one of the most adaptable systems in the human body. What changes with age is not the muscle's fundamental capacity to grow, but the sensitivity of the signals that tell it to do so. Muscle exists in a constant cycle of breakdown and repair, governed by cellular pathways that respond directly to mechanical tension. When resistance is applied, whether through lifting, pushing, or simply standing from a chair with intention, microscopic stress activates satellite cells that function like local repair specialists. These cells merge with existing muscle fibers, supporting protein synthesis and structural renewal. The machinery responsible for this process does not shut down with age. It simply becomes quieter when unused, conserving energy in accordance with the body's efficiency-driven design. This means that muscle loss is less a one-way biological slide and more a reflection of environmental demand. The body continuously evaluates what tissue is necessary. If a muscle is rarely challenged, the system interprets it as metabolically expensive excess and reallocates resources. Conversely, when consistent resistance is introduced, signaling molecules such as mTOR are stimulated, encouraging the rebuilding of contractile proteins. Even in later decades, research consistently shows that older muscle fibers respond to overload with hypertrophy, an increase in fiber size, and improvements in neuromuscular efficiency. The rate of adaptation may be slower than in youth, but the direction remains the same. The tissue reorganizes itself to meet the expectation placed upon it. Importantly, this rebuilding is not purely cosmetic or athletic. Muscle acts as a structural and metabolic anchor for the body. As fibers strengthen, joint stability improves, circulation becomes more effective, and connective tissues receive better mechanical support. The sensation many describe as getting stronger is actually a multi-layered recalibration in which cells coordinate energy use, repair pathways, and neural input. Regular resistance provides the body with a clear biological message. This tissue is required for survival and function. The system responds not with resistance to age, but with cooperation, gradually restoring density, contractile integrity, and cellular communication in a process that reflects the muscle's enduring readiness to adapt when it is asked to participate in meaningful work and continuous demand for renewal through deliberate effort. Strength is not created in muscle alone. It begins as an electrical intention inside the nervous system. Every voluntary movement is organized by motor neurons that recruit bundles of muscle fibers into coordinated action units. With aging, this neural recruitment becomes less efficient, not because the system is failing, but because it is adapting to reduced demand. When movements are small, hurried, or avoided, the brain gradually lowers the priority it assigns to activating high-threshold motor units, the fibers responsible for meaningful force production. The result is a perception of weakness that is partly muscular, but significantly neurological. The encouraging reality is that the nervous system retains a lifelong capacity for plasticity. When resistance training is introduced, especially with slow and deliberate effort, the brain is prompted to refine its signaling patterns. It begins to synchronize motor unit firing more effectively, reducing internal noise and increasing the proportion of fibers contributing to each contraction. This neural refinement has a compounding effect. As coordination improves, muscles experience more uniform tension, which enhances mechanical efficiency and reduces unnecessary strain on joints. The brain is constantly predicting and adjusting movement based on feedback from sensory receptors embedded in muscles and tendons. Training sharpens this feedback loop. Repeated exposure to controlled load teaches the nervous system to calibrate force with greater precision, improving timing and stability. Over time, movements that once felt effortful begin to feel organized, not because the muscles alone have grown stronger, but because the neural pathways governing them have become more economical. Equally important is the preservation and adaptation of motor neurons themselves. Aging is associated with a gradual loss of some motor units, yet the nervous system compensates by expanding the influence of remaining neurons, allowing them to innervate additional fibers. Resistance training supports this compensation by encouraging efficient neural branching and sustained communication between nerve and muscle tissue. This interaction maintains the integrity of the neuromuscular junction, the microscopic interface where electrical signals become mechanical action. A well-stimulated junction transmits signals with less delay and greater reliability. What emerges from consistent practice is a system that learns to trust its own output. The brain reduces protective inhibition, a subconscious braking mechanism, designed to prevent injury, because repeated exposure to safe resistance demonstrates capability. As inhibition decreases, more motor units are permitted to engage, translating intention into force with greater clarity. Strength, in this sense, becomes a dialogue between neural confidence and muscular response, where each repetition reinforces the circuitry responsible for precision, stability, and efficient force production, allowing the nervous system to reorganize itself around purposeful effort and sustained recruitment of dormant capacity. Muscle is not just a tissue that moves the body. It is a metabolic engine with profound systemic influence. After 60, engaging skeletal muscle through resistance or functional movement triggers biochemical signals that ripple far beyond the fibers themselves. Every contraction stimulates the release of myokines, small signaling molecules that travel through the bloodstream to organs, tissues, and even the brain. These molecules modulate inflammation, enhance glucose uptake, and influence fat metabolism, creating a cascade of benefits that touch almost every physiological system. When muscle is active, it behaves like an endocrine organ, sending a message that the body is still capable of growth, repair, and adaptation, reinforcing the interconnectedness of strength and overall health. The metabolic role of muscle becomes particularly significant with age because the efficiency of other systems, like the pancreas and cardiovascular network, may begin to decline. Active muscle tissue improves insulin sensitivity by increasing the number and responsiveness of glucose transporters in the cell membrane, allowing blood sugar to be cleared more effectively after meals. This is not merely a mechanism for energy delivery. It reduces systemic stress and lowers the risk of chronic diseases such as type 2 diabetes, which become increasingly common after midlife. Additionally, muscle contractions stimulate mitochondrial function, the cellular powerhouses that convert nutrients into energy, improving energy efficiency at a cellular level. This effect contributes to a sense of vitality that extends beyond the gym or the immediate workout session, influencing endurance, mental clarity, and recovery capacity. Resistance and movement also influence lipid metabolism. Engaged muscle encourages the utilization of fatty acids as fuel, reducing the accumulation of visceral fat that is associated with inflammation and cardiovascular risk. This metabolic recalibration affects not only body composition, but also the chemical environment of tissues, supporting joint health and modulating oxidative stress. The benefits cascade further because improved circulation accompanies muscle engagement, enhancing oxygen and nutrient delivery to tissues while facilitating the removal of metabolic waste. In essence, the simple act of activating muscles establishes a more cooperative internal environment where the body's systems communicate more efficiently, inflammation is moderated, and energy balance is optimized. Even neurological health is influenced through these biochemical pathways. Myokines released during contraction interact with the brain to support neurogenesis, cognitive function, and mood regulation. This reinforces a principle that strength is never purely mechanical. It is an integrative process where muscle activity organizes metabolic, vascular, and neural networks. By maintaining muscle engagement, older adults can cultivate a body that functions more harmoniously, preserving energy, supporting resilience, and sustaining the intricate balance between movement and systemic health. Movement after 60 is often approached with caution, but every deliberate contraction carries far more significance than simply producing force. It retrains the nervous system to understand the body in space. This awareness, known as proprioception, is the silent guide that coordinates balance, timing, and fluidity of movement. As we age, the sensitivity of proprioceptive sensors in muscles, tendons, and joints can diminish, not because the body has lost its capability, but because these systems are understimulated. Slow, intentional exercises, even simple standing, reaching, or controlled lifting, send consistent feedback to the brain, teaching it to map the body more accurately. Over time, the nervous system begins to predict movement patterns with greater precision, improving coordination and minimizing the risk of missteps or falls, which are often a significant concern for older adults. This refinement transforms ordinary actions into confident, fluid motions. Proprioception is closely tied to the concept of balance, but it goes deeper than standing still. It is a dynamic dialogue between sensory input and motor output, continuously adjusting the body's position in response to external forces. Resistance training, functional exercises, and controlled mobility drills challenge this system in ways that restore harmony between perception and action. When a muscle contracts under controlled load, sensory receptors embedded in the tissue relay information about stretch, tension, and position to the spinal cord and brain. The nervous system integrates this information, fine-tuning postural adjustments and enhancing stability. The result is not only safer movement, but a heightened sense of bodily confidence, a trust in one's ability to navigate daily life with precision and ease. Neurological adaptation also reinforces coordination. Each repetition strengthens the synaptic connections that link brain regions responsible for motor planning and execution. This process, often referred to as neuroplasticity, does not diminish with age. It simply requires consistent stimulation. Older adults who practice mindful movement experience improvements in timing, rhythm, and joint alignment because their nervous system learns to orchestrate muscle activity more effectively. Even minor adjustments, like consciously shifting weight during a step or controlling a seated squat, have cumulative effects that enhance the body's internal map. The system begins to anticipate load, stabilize joints, and coordinate multi-joint movements more seamlessly. Beyond balance and coordination, the enhancement of proprioception influences everyday function. Tasks that were once fatiguing or uncertain, such as climbing stairs, reaching for objects, or standing from a low chair, become more efficient and controlled. The body adapts not only through muscle strength, but through the intelligent use of feedback loops that reduce hesitation and improve responsiveness. Movement transforms into an organized, precise dialogue between brain, muscle, and environment, creating an embodied confidence that reinforces strength, stability, and a sense of physical independence. Psychological adaptation is a cornerstone of maintaining strength after 60, often overlooked in discussions that focus solely on muscles or joints, yet it profoundly shapes how the body responds to effort. The mind and body are deeply interconnected, and the way we perceive our own capability directly influences the nervous system's willingness to recruit muscle fibers. Many older adults experience an internal narrative of fragility, a subtle but pervasive belief that the body is fragile and easily injured. This narrative triggers protective inhibition, a subconscious mechanism in which the brain deliberately limits muscle activation to reduce perceived risk. While intended as a safeguard, it can unintentionally accelerate functional decline. Each cautious movement reinforces the idea that exertion is dangerous, gradually diminishing both confidence and physical capacity. The transformative power of psychological adaptation lies in reshaping this internal dialogue through repeated, successful engagement with safe resistance and controlled challenge. Every deliberate repetition becomes evidence to the nervous system that effort is safe and effective. The brain recalibrates its sense of threat, allowing more motor units to engage without triggering the protective braking mechanism. This is not merely a mental trick, it is a measurable reduction in inhibitory signals that constrain strength and coordination. As the mind begins to trust the body's capability, the nervous system increases its recruitment of high-threshold motor units, improving force production and movement efficiency. Psychological adaptation, therefore, directly enhances physical outcomes, creating a feedback loop in which confidence encourages activity and activity reinforces capability. Over time, older adults notice that tasks once avoided or approached with hesitation, lifting groceries, climbing stairs, or standing from a low chair, become more manageable, more controlled, and even effortless. The influence of mindset extends to motivation and consistency. Strength gains are not instantaneous. They accumulate through regular, repeated practice. When the psychological barrier of fear diminishes, adherence to exercise routines becomes more natural and rewarding. Each successful session provides tangible proof that the body is resilient, encouraging continued engagement and reinforcing neuromuscular adaptation. The interplay between mental assurance and muscular response becomes self-reinforcing. The brain allows more effort, muscles respond with greater strength, and the mind perceives increased competence. This cycle illustrates that strength is as much a product of perception as it is of tissue integrity. Moreover, psychological adaptation nurtures a sense of autonomy and mastery over one's body. The perception of fragility gives way to empowerment, and physical capability is reclaimed not by ignoring limitations, but by gently challenging them. Confidence reshapes daily movement patterns, reducing hesitation, enhancing coordination, and fostering a sense of independence. In this way, mental recalibration becomes inseparable from physical restoration, demonstrating that the cultivation of psychological resilience is essential for sustaining functional strength and reclaiming control over the aging body.